Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to a slightly soggy Snetterton this time. The sun may have disappeared, but nothing is going to dampen the spirits of our mighty competitors in their flying machines. Those that saw yesterday's race will be recognising these top three, and again it's Piers Grange in the flying orange Escort on the top spot. Piers, you were untouchable yesterday.
Yes, yeah, pretty good day yesterday, but I think it might be a bit different today. These conditions don't suit the car at all.
Oh dear, well there might be. Well, I mean, you were toying with people yesterday, now you're going to give them a chance.
Yeah, today I think it's going to be a bit different. Unless I can get any heat in the back tyres, there's going to be a few places dropped, I think.
We look forward to it. Best of luck, good sir, and we will see you on the other side. In second position is this monstrous 3.7 litre Escort of Ashley Shellswell. Ashley, just get in position here. Well, these conditions are probably not too good for all the horses you've got under the right foot.
No, definitely not. Rear wheel drive as well. I've left the slicks on. I did think about going the wets, but I'm hoping 2 or 3 laps I might get some heat in them and see where we go.
Brave boy. You had a great battle with Jack yesterday. Do you think you'll be able to keep the young one behind you again?
I'll try. It was. I see him going for the lead on the last lap. I thought, oh, he's on the grass, so I got a good run coming out onto the straight, and I picked him by half a car, I think it was. So yeah, I'm hoping for the same. Yeah.
Excellent. Best of luck, and we will see you on the other side. Thank you, sir. Have a quick moment to hopefully speak to Jack. If he opens his window, he's already closed his window, look. Ah, good man. Jack. Well, the pesky Sierra nailed you on the line yesterday.
It did, yeah. We had a slight mishap going into here, and yeah, Ashley done us. So the last lap wasn't that great yesterday.
Well, these conditions will suit your car a bit more than his, will it not?
It will do, yeah, because they've got the power, so they might be a little bit more twitchy, so I'll get my head down and do some work.
Top spot, do you think Piers isn't confident?
We'll have to wait and see.
Modest to the end. And also, is it good fun getting one over Dad?
Yeah, it's always good getting one over Dad.
Good man. Best of luck, Jack, and we'll see you on the other side. They haven't been released yet. Let's go a bit further down the line. Now, we spoke to number 87 yesterday, which is Dave Matthias in the Sierra. We'll have a chat again. Dave? How you weren't too sure how you were going to do yesterday. You must have been pretty pleased with the result in the end.
Yes, it was a brilliant race. Quite a good battle with the chap in the Mort 1 there. So yeah, it was really good. Yeah, very good.
What about the slippery conditions? There's a question I'm asking everybody at the moment, but there's such a difference of car, rear wheel drive, lots of horses, slightly smaller engine. What do you think of the slightly slipperier conditions?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit tricky. It's going to be a bit tricky for a few laps at least. So we'll just have to see how we get on.
Everyone's remaining cautious. Best of luck, and we'll see you on the other side. And we may have time for one more, which will be car number 113. Now, this is Rory Jose of the Project Zero squad in the Ford Focus. Rory, well, we see you coming a mile off. It's a very bright car, sir.
Yeah, she's a little bit bright, but it's just to attract the crowd. And you can't miss me then as well if anyone crashes into me, so...
This makes a glorious noise as it comes past. Now, do you ever get to a point where it's like, oh, what's that noise or what's that vibration, or is it just head down and get on with it until it breaks?
Well, after our previous experience at Donington, when we had a little bit of an issue with the head gasket, we literally just got to the point now where I just go for it and hope for the best.
Go flat out, don't blame you. Best of luck, we'll see you on the other side. They're going to be released very shortly, you can hear them revving out. We'll hand back to Scott Woodward in the commentary box.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, hello to those who are watching on the Modified Ford Series page, and as we continue on our stream here for the BRSCC Catering Race Weekend at Snetterton. Slightly murkier and damper conditions than we had yesterday, but certainly this lot will certainly brighten things up. It is the second race of the weekend for the Modified Ford Series, which has been quite a sensation this year since they joined the BRSCC. as a series that runs under their roster. This is, as you can probably imagine, for those who didn't watch yesterday's race or haven't seen them before, a series that is primarily reserved for all things blue oval, for Fords of all shapes and sizes up until the age of 2011. Cars made up until 2011, so any cars made in 2011 and older are eligible to compete, and that's when you get to see a wide variety of machines, from lots of Escorts, Sierras, a couple of Ford Focuses, there's Pumas, Fiestas, Capris. We even have the likes of Mondeos in this series before, and even a Mustang and even an RS200 at the start of the season. There's been all sorts that can contest this series, and it usually does so in spades. So they're getting set. This is their final weekend of competition here at Snetterton before they sign off for the 2021 year, but they have been with the BRSCC on a previous 3 race meetings. They started at Donington Park back in May with quite a bumper 30-plus car grid. They also went to Alton Park. They've been to Anglesey as well, where they were also on the live stream race day. And of course they're here again at Snetterton to round things off. And there is a beautiful selection of Fords on this grid of all different shapes and sizes and different builds and specifications, and all separated into one of 4 different classes, 5 different classes, either Class A, B, B1 or C. Then there's also an invitation class for cars that don't necessarily fit within those cars, but are Fords that fit with the spirit of the series, so they'll be able to compete. And it is one of those invitation class cars that will start on the pole position for this second race. So if you didn't watch yesterday's race, very quick recap. It was Piers Grange, who was in the Mark 1 Escort RSR, the orange car that not only won the race but starts on pole for this second race as a result of that. He led pretty much from start to finish, but he was closed down in the end by the fellow Mark 1 Escort RSR, which starts just behind him in the white car with the sort of rainbow striping. That is Jack Gadd. Now, he closed in on him right at the end of the race until he was right on his rear wing and tried to loosely look at a move into the final corner. Couldn't quite make it stick and went all over the curves. As a result, his momentum was completely killed, and on the sprint to the line while Piers Grange won, it was actually Shellswell in the Sierra XR4i that starts on the front row alongside Piers for this second race, as a result of the fact that he managed to pinch second place on the sprint to the checkered flag. So it's Piers Grange who took yesterday's win, Ashley Shellswell in second place, and Jack Gadd in third. But also, if you look down some of the other cars in the mix, you've got lots of Escorts, you've got the David Mathias's Sierra Sapphire Cosworth, you've got Rory Joseph's Ford Focus ST with quite a powerful engine in the front of it. You've got quite a few ST150s. There's Kevin Hadfield's Ford Puma, all sorts of cars, and we'll take you through who's running what with the grid now. So as a result of yesterday, Piers Grange's Mark 1 Escort RSR starts on pole alongside the Sierra XR4i of Ashley Shellswell. Row 2 is Jack Gadd and his Escort RSR, David Mathias in the Sierra Sapphire Cosworth. Row 3, Rory Joseph and his Ford Focus ST, which you can't see missing because it's bright pink, and Paul Neville, who looks after modified Fords. He's racing his own Escort RS2000 Mark II. Martin Reynolds and Tony Paxman, another pair of Escorts, the Reynolds Mark II, Paxman Mark I, Mike Thurley in his Mark I, then rounds out the top 10 with John Edwards Parton in his Fiesta XR2, who beat Alex Bone for the Class C win, Alex starting in his Boomerang Racing ST150, and then Nigel Craig's Mark II will start 12th. Tim Sandy then comes next in 13th in ST150, Nigel Hutton's Sierra Sapphire Cosworth starts 14th on the 7th row. Row 8 is Nick Worcester's Escort Mark I, and Jason Stone's Fiesta ST150. Go further down to the 9th row, you see another pair of ST150s with Daniel Cowan starting ahead of Dominic Ryan. The top 20 is completed by Kevin Hatfield in the Ford Puma and Dave Barrett in his Ford Fiesta T-Tech S. And then row 11 of the cars that finished is Chris Burley in his ST150. He starts alongside the similar example of Richard Sanders. You then have a couple of cars that didn't finish yesterday's race. Malcolm Wise, who hopefully should be on the grid, was in the assembly area, so hopefully his car should be starting 23rd. I didn't see Stuart Day's Ford Escort class with those salaries. He won't be down, I'm afraid. David Guthrie, hopefully he's on the grid too. He should be starting 25th alongside James Harris. The one car that definitely is there but didn't compete in yesterday's first race is the almighty Rob Burley. He will start from the back of the grid, but do not expect him to stay there. And you see him just in the background of shots. He starts from 27th and last on the grid in his evergreen Ford Escort WRC. So the field makes its way around, tiptoes around this slightly greasy circuit now here at Snetterton. And looks like I think everyone apart from, as I say, I think Stuart Day's the only one from yesterday's retirements and non-starters that isn't on the grid. So unfortunately, Stuart Day's Escort Cosworth, which was running quite well until it sort of starts to falter midway through, is the one which won't be able to make it through. So yeah, for those who love Ford race cars and all things Ford, this will certainly be a series that you need to keep tabs of, particularly going into 2022. I know that the BRSCC has been very happy with the Modified Ford Series and all of the fantastic machinery and the great grids that they've brought throughout the season on the 4 race meetings, including this weekend that they've appeared on. They've been a very welcome addition, so a big thank you to Paul Neville and everyone involved within Modified Fords for pulling it all together to make it a great series, and hopefully it'll keep on inspiring more and more Ford race cars throughout the domestic UK club racing scene to come and have a go, come and take part. And they've had some brilliant escapades to other events outside BRSCC. They've even appeared at Ford Power Live several weeks ago at Brands Hatch, where they had such an entry list they had to fill 2 separate grids in order to fill them all in. It was fantastic to have an A grid and a grid and a B grid for all these cars, and some great machines that have appeared throughout the season. There was I remember some pit photos of a Mustang that was going to take part in this series at one point, but I'm not sure what came with that. And one car that I've mentioned before is that it's one of my favourites in this series myself, is the Wayne Crabtree Ford RS200 that I do hope makes another appearance in this series at some point next year, because that car is absolutely spectacular. It is a Ford RS200, the Ford's Group B rally car from the late 80s, and that car essentially has a body kit on it which is something similar to that you'd find on either a hill climb contest or Pikes Peak or Time Attack, and it runs a Subaru Boxer engine. It's quite an extraordinary car. One also a driver and car combination that isn't here also, that's been quite dominant on the time that he's appeared, that we've seen him here with us, is Dave Mathias, who Dave Cockle in his Ford Escort Cosworth, which runs about 750 to 800 brake horsepower. When it's fully turned up to the max, it is quite a machine in a straight line. It's no surprise that of all the races that he's taken part in, pretty much apart from one where he had an issue with his gear stick coming off, he's pretty much gone ahead and won every single race that he's competed in and at least finished. So lots of promise for next year. More and more cars, I'm sure, will be joining the Modified Ford Brigade. But we've got 27 of the best here for this second race of the weekend of 3. We'll have one more for them later on this afternoon. A nice way to kick off their Sunday morning with a little bit of blue oval powered noise as we come up to the end of the formation lap at Coram. Looking at some of the other cars that are in there, I can see, we've got the other cars that are in there, the James Harris's cars, they're Guthrie's there, Michael Wise, and also so is Rob Burley. So watch for the likes of Wise and Burley from the back to push their way through the pair of Escort Cosworths. And I think just for safety, they are going to put them indeed on a second green flag lap. So as the conditions have been a little bit damper and greasier than yesterday when it was bone dry, it's going to be difficult. What's also looking difficult is Rob Burley's car, because I'm afraid he comes straight into the pit lane. Whether that was just a one and done formation lap to see if the car was fully working or not, I'm not 100%, but if that means he's not going to take the start, then that would be a real shame, because one's car on the grid is going to be quite unfortunate. There is the 58 Escort Mark 1 of Nick Worcester. Great to see these beautiful Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escorts, which I know in many cases have been mostly synonymous for those who know motorsport within rallying circles, but you forget sometimes that these Mark 1 and Mark 2 did make quite formidable race cars of their own on the circuits rather than just the rally stages. They were quite dominant in the forest tracks and tarmac stages, but when you put them on a circuit, there's some beautifully prepared examples. It's great to have a few of them here on the grid. We've had a couple of Zaxby prepared cars, which will also be able to grace the grid as well. There was a beautiful black, red, orange and yellow car, which I forget the name of the driver, but it was a really lovely car that was on the grid. And look at I think the weather conditions, at least, well, it's that foggy and that dark and murky looking over that part of the circuit, but it looks a little brighter over here on the pit straight where our commentary box is situated. But here you think it's quite much later in like a late afternoon sort of overcast weather situation, but it's not quite the brightest here, given that we're going into early October, and given the fact that we've also had some beautiful sunset yesterday with some fantastic shots. It was providing of the sun setting and this beautiful orange golden sky at towards the latter stage of the afternoon. Didn't get that, but I think hopefully the early morning murk is starting to burn through a bit now, thanks to the inclement sunshine. Fingers crossed. So the pack makes its way around on the second formation lap, which again, I think any drizzle that we had across the duration of that Caterham Road Sport race we just had seems to have dissipated pretty quickly, because any inclement sun that's coming through is starting to burn off and try to circuit up a little bit more. So by the time they get to the end of the second formation, now the circuit could almost be practically bone dry again, which would be quite suitable. These cars will be able to really stretch their legs and battling amongst themselves. So you predominantly see the Escorts and the Sierras towards the front for the overall victory, and the likes of the ST150s and the Puma there, Kevin Hadfield, and the little Fiestas and older Escorts towards the back, having a battle amongst themselves for the minor places towards the rear. But the good thing is that because there are so many classes, as well as the invitation classes, that you generally have always have someone to race in a series like this. So race 2 of the weekend for the modified Ford series, 15 minutes, rolling starts to the runyourfleet.com Jaguar safety car, for which we give massive thanks to runyourfleet.com for. There's not only their support, but their providing of the Jaguar for this season. It is going to lead them around towards the start and finish line. Everyone will form up in 2x2 grid formation, and they'll keep at a steady pace. They'll watch for the red lights on the top of the gantry. When they go out, they'll be underway for their second of 3 races here at Snetterton. So all sorts on the grid: Escorts, Fiestas, Pumas, Sierras, even a Ford Focus, and everything else in between. As they now form up now to get ready, it is Piers Grange in the Mark 1 RSR Escort, the orange car on the left-hand side, and it is the Sierra XR4i, the car in white, orange and blue on the right-hand side on the front of the grid. They will look to try and get the whole shot. Watch out for Jack Adam, David Matthias and Rory Jones, particularly that pink Focus ST, because that car is quite a rocket in a straight line. So don't be surprised if that car starts to make up a couple of places towards the rolling start. We're going to get set then with 15 minutes of modified Ford Series actions. The red lights go out and we charge down towards Richie for the first time. There is the Focus trying to make its way up the inside, squirming around under brakes, trying to get back past Jack Gann in the Escort Mark 1, but it was side by side between the 2 front row men. As there goes John Edwards Parton. Oh goodness me, there's been contact. 3 or 4 cars involved. One of them is David Matthias, one of them is the 57 cars, Tony Paxman. I saw Paul Neville was involved, Rory Joseph, the Focus ST was involved, and I think John Edwards Parton, he was braking to avoid making contact. I think either he has or he's made contact on the side of the car. If everyone can get away, that might hopefully be a good thing. I think there's another car. There wasn't. I thought there was another car parked behind that incident, but that's a real shame. 4 or 5 cars involved. I'm afraid there's damaged steering to the front left of Paul Neville's car, unfortunately. So it looks like he won't be going any further. I don't know if John Edwards Parton did make contact, whether he just stopped and stalled the car. The leaders, meanwhile, continue their way through Agostini. Jack Gann has now taken the lead. It's now second place for the pole sitter, Piers Grange, but it's all going to come to nothing, I'm afraid, because, as I can see out of my commentary box window, the red flag has been displayed and the race is being stopped. So that's a real shame. It was such an explosive and energetic start from those guys. It looks as though that a couple of drivers tried to make moves up into turn 1 to try and essentially, I guess the term is, win the race on the first corner, which is not always the best strategy to take. But the main concern, of course, is that in any incident, big or small, that the drivers get out and that they are on the baseline okay. Fingers crossed. I think Paul Neville's still in his car, but I think just not for any, hopefully for any adverse reason, other than he's simply just taking stock of everything and just getting out and waiting to be told to get out when he's instructed to by one of the marshals or officials. So what will happen is that the drivers will now form up at least either on the grid or in the pit lane, and then because we barely completed a few corners before the race was being red flagged, what it will now mean is that the race will start again once more in the original grid position, so minus anyone else who, for whatever reason, whether it's damage or otherwise, won't be able to take the restart. So it's a real shame, that. So the 5 cars that were predominantly involved, that's good. That's a little handshake there between Paul Neville and John Edwards Parton, just conversing, just checking on each other to make sure they're all okay. It's nice to see a together series like this, a modified Ford series, regardless of what happens to anyone. Everyone always checks in and makes sure, you know, you're okay. Did anything happen? Are you all right? Do you feel okay? Do you need any help? And it's just nice to see that at least even in an incident, it's all, while there could be less than cooler heads prevailing, it's nice to see that at least there is some considerate sort of conversation going on between Paul and John, just to make sure that both are okay. Now that's a positive sign, at least, a silver lining. Rob Burley's car did get back out, so whatever issue he had, and I wonder possibly if he speculated the fact, if he realised there was going to be a second green flag lap, so because of that he came in to quickly have the car checked to make sure that all was running fine, as he went back out to retake the start from the rear of the grid. I think possibly that might have been a silver lining in disguise, because if he had been shooting up the outside of any of the faster cars, he may well have possibly got caught up in that first corner melee. So thankfully, pitting in to get the car checked over before he went on to the second formation lap. It was actually one of the best things, it turns out, that Rock could have done to keep his car in one piece. So the cars will then make their way back around to the grid. We've got a couple of marshals and officials just waiting for them at the head of the grid here, just outside my commentary box window. So the 5 cars, I remember that being involved. Rory Joseph's Focus ST was definitely one of them as he went down the inside line. It was there when we saw the incident at Ritchie's with John Edwards-Parton and Paul Neville. It looks like, initially, that the cars that were around the front of the field, as I think Rockway is going back into pit lane, so that's another check through to make sure the car's okay, and either just another check over from the team to see if there's definitely anything else to tweak or not. So the 5 cars that were involved, towards the front of the field, immediately it would have been, I'm guessing, an incident between Rory Jose and Dave Mathias with Paul Neville in there somewhere, because Paul Neville, of course, was involved in that. And the one shot we initially saw going into Ritchie's was Rory Jose trying to go up the inside of Jack Gadd. Now, I also saw, of course, that Piers Grange had lost the lead to Jack Gadd, and of course he dropped down to second or third, because he dropped down behind both Jack Gadd and Ashley Shellswell. So it looks like whatever happened involved the first 4 or 5 cars, but the ones that actually came off being part of the incident, by the looks of it, were Rory Jose and Dave Mathias, because Dave Mathias' Sierra Sapphire Cosworth went spinning off onto the grass. So did Tony Paxman's Escort Mark 1. And then by the time John Edwards-Parton arrived onto the scene, because you could see he was backing off and slowing up on screen before the incident, the aftermath of the incident in question came into shot, Paul Neville and Rory Jose had already finished getting together on track. So John Edwards-Parton, whether or not he actually did hit the side of Rory's car, it wasn't immediately clear on camera because the camera pulled away before they guessed there was any contact, but we'll see when these cars are moved, if any, what damage John Edwards-Parton's Ford Fiesta XR2 has. I think there's unfortunately, definite damage to the front of Paul Neville's car, because I think he went to move and there is, either that's just the direction the steering is on the left hand side where he's got the car turned, or it's damage to the left front steering. Paul Neville's car did seem as though it did look as though it wasn't planning to move anytime soon under its own accord, sadly, which is a shame. That's a really lovely put together car by Paul Neville, that Ford Escort RS 2000. I know he takes great pride in it, so he wants to try and put that back together as best as possible. Now, the blue Escort Mark 1 of Tony Paxman, now of course he simply went spinning onto the grass, so it looks as though he's got away from that pretty much unscathed, which is great to see. So he looks like he will be able to retake his position at the on his grid spot, which should be 8th on the grid. He should be able to take the restart, thankfully. Hopefully so will Dave Mathias, because I'm not sure if he was involved in any contact or simply just had to go ahead, just swerve onto the grass and was sent spinning as a result of just trying to keep out of trouble. But if he is okay, he'll be able to move his way back into 4th on the grid and be able to start again from the second row, so be able to watch out for that. So I would anticipate that we might have possibly a blank 3rd row, which is going to be quite interesting when we consider that for a rolling start, leaving a tiny blank 3rd row will have to be determined whether or not they fill that gap or they simply leave the road in order to ensure that the likes of the drivers behind the second row don't actually get involved in any kind of possible out of position starts. So we're just seeing John Edwards-Parton's car being lifted out of position. Now there is damage to the left front, you can see, but it's just purely just left front corner damage. If there's any suspension damage, it's gone with it. But that will be looked at, and if hopefully they can get that fixed for the 3rd race later on this afternoon. But that car now being very expertly loaded. I said that rather cautiously. I was watching the back end of that car going onto the trailer, but his car being lifted onto the recovery truck. And a shout out to all the magnificent marshals and recovery crews for working and giving up their free weekends to ensure the race meetings like this can go ahead, because without them we simply couldn't go racing at all. They really are the lifeblood of racing, and of course there's been even more appreciation shown for the work that marshals do in their free time than there already was, given the tragic events of Brands Hatch a couple of months ago with the much missed Marshal Robert Foote, who sadly passed away at Brands Hatch during a race weekend. So the work continues down at Ritchie's Corner. I think they're now starting to load up the Paul Neville Escort RS2000. Just while we're waiting for the recovery to take place and an indication of our restart, we'll give you a quick run through of what we can expect for the rest of the day. So this, of course, is the second race of today in the Modified Ford Series. The next race afterwards is a potentially provisional championship deciding race, because we've got the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship, where, looking at some permutations for this second race, if the result essentially replicates itself, particularly for Alex Walker, that he wins the race once again, provisionally, we think, and we say, and the key word in all that is provisionally, because we believe it might well be enough to ensure that Alex is provisionally crowned the 2021 National Formula 4 champion. But all points totals are provisional until declared final by the BRSCC or respective series or racing club. So, of course, everything will be double checked to make sure that all is in order. But after National Formula 4, we then do get to crowning our two Academy champions, which is the green group and then the white group, and they then sandwich the second race for the Caterham 7 270R Championship, and the last race before lunch is the first of our two races today for the second set of races for the Classic Modern Motorsport Club Southern Division, with their Intermark Silhouettes, who've been out in qualifying this morning, and they'll have their first race just before lunch. And then we'll have our lunch break. We'll be in a slightly extended break of 50 minutes for lunch, and then we have a qualifying session for today's timetable ending BRSCC Club Sport Trophy race, which takes place as the last race this afternoon. But then before that, we then have the second race of the Caterham 7310Rs, the third race of the weekend for the Modified Ford Series later on. Then we have the special end of season non-championship Caterham Academy Autumn Trophy race, where drivers from both green and white Academy groups will then move forwards into a standalone race, which is simply just I quite lovingly call it a graduation race, a chance for them to leave the academy in style before they move on to road sports or further afield in racing later on. And then we have the last race of the season for the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship later on this afternoon at around about roughly on the original timetable, 4:20. And then the second CMMC Southern Intermark Silhouettes race, and then we have our 45-minute BRSCC Club Sport Trophy race, which is set to take place at about 5:20, which might well, if the weather improves, take place in a rather lovely autumnal October Snetterton sunset. Good to see spectators back out here at Snetterton this race. Of course, with the restrictions having been sort of lifted a few months ago, it's good to see that spectators and race fans are getting back around the circuits and supporting not just British motorsport in general, but club motorsport, because of course it is very much a breeding ground for great talents and great drivers who've come through. And if you think about some of the great drivers in more recent years, in the last sort of 5, 10, 15 years that have come through in the top race series like British GT and British and BTCC and other decent series like Britcar and GT Cup and everything else, like TCR UK you can throw in as well. Quite a few of those drivers would have started their racing in this sort of grassroots club level racing, which is always quite a key way for drivers to get involved, and it does allow, within reason, anyone who's got the budget to go racing in club racing, where it's not entirely cheap, it's not the most expensive way of going racing either, and it's always relatively accessible for those who have got a race car and want to compete in any series in which that car is able to compete. So great to see people around the circuits, and given the fact that how much the British, us Brits, quite love motorsport, we are quite hardy souls, and that regardless of the weather, whether it's rain or shine or sleet or snow or freezing conditions, if there's motorsport on, regardless of any time of the year, whether it's Christmas or anywhere else, if there's motorsport to go and watch, if you're a fan, you'll certainly want to go and watch it. So that's something to certainly keep an eye on. And then in particular, there's the usually every single year there's the plum pudding races that take place at Boxing Day at Mallory Park over several years. Usually, I don't think there's any confirmation yet on the status of that for this year, but there's usually some winter series, and back to the years back in the 80s and 90s when racing straight right into deep into November and even early December for club race, when you had all these traditional winter series and winter cups that took place. It was always a different time when literally racing would go straight up into early December, and then you had a few days for Christmas. And even you look back in the days when racing was taking place back in the 60s and 70s, the Formula 1 series used to get underway in the first couple of days of the new year, like in January over in South Africa. The drivers used to, and the families and teams used to go over and celebrate Christmas and New Year in South Africa together as a collective, and then go and race a couple of days later, even as soon as New Year's Day, January 1st, we've had Grand Prix in South Africa. So motorsport fans, regardless of the time of the year or the weather conditions, as you can see, will turn out and watch good motorsport whenever they deem it necessary. So the incidents now being questions now been cleared up. So again, big thank you to all of our fantastic marshals and officials and recovery crews for acting so swiftly to getting the cars out of the way. So we've now recovered both Paul Neville and John Edwards Parkin's cars from the scene of the incident, and now the cars head off onto essentially now their third formation lap. And again, because we completed S2 lap, didn't even complete a lap, the cars have been reformed into their original starting places, which again were determined by the result of yesterday's race. So we'll quickly run you through the top again and the cars that we do and don't expect to be on the grid. So Piers Grange will start again from pole position in the Ford Escort Mark 1 RSR. Ashley Shelswell will be starting alongside him in second place. Then we have Jack Gadd and hopefully David Matthias starting in fourth position. Then where we would have expected to have Rory Jones, if he is on the grid, we've got him in fifth position. One car we definitely will not have, sadly, for this restart is Paul Neville, because we saw his car being loaded away after the incident of Ritchie's. Then we have after that, we've then got Martin Reynolds and Tony Paxman, followed by Mike Thurley and John Edwards Parkin, who will not take the start. So just for the record, I can't see Rory Jones' car, sadly. Neither is Paul Neville's car there as well, so we'll have a blank third row. Tony Paxman's Escort is there. And also just checked, how are we missing or not David Matthias's Sapphire Cosworth? We don't have it, sadly, so that's 3 cars are missing from the front. So no David Matthias, no Rory Jones, no Paul Neville. So there's going to be a little bit of a hole towards the front of the field for those 3 cars that aren't present. So keep an eye out for that. So the next highest place starting car that is going to be on the grid behind the top 3 is going to be Martin Reynolds in that 7th place. Really beautifully prepared white, yellow and blue Escort Mark 2. He'll start 7th on the grid. 8th is set to be Tony Paxman. 9th is Mike Thurley. No John Edwards Parton, who we saw also being trailed away. He was due to start 10th. Then we have Alex Bohm starting in 11th place. Nigel Craig starting 12th. Tim Sandu 13th. Nigel Hutton 14th. Nick Worcester 15th. Then Jason Stone, Daniel Cowan, Dominic Ryan, Kevin Hatfield's for Puma, Dave Barrett, Chris Burley and Richard Sanders, and hopefully also Malcolm Wise, David Guthrie, James Harris, and hopefully as well, given the fact that he's now taken 2 trips to the pits, whether or not Rob Burley will be there either or not, we'll have to wait and see. His car did get out for a couple of the formation laps, but his car have seen his car on camera go to the pit lane twice, so whether or not that car is not all at full health after yesterday's pair of races that he had, and he did have a unfortunate retirement from the second race during the CMMC Southern Super Saloons and Tin Tops race, where his car was in the lead and then faltered just as he was heading down to the Agostini hairpin. So whether that's just a legacy of yesterday and the overnight work to try and fix whatever the problem was, sadly, when his car is able to run, it doesn't appear to run at 100%, which is unfortunate to see. So I think this might be just the one formation lap, I think, before they form back up 2 by 2. So whether it looks like there is starting to be some light drizzle coming down now. There are drivers now with wipers ablaze, which suggests that they're starting to spit the rain a little bit more. You can see a few more spots on the camera as well as they make their way round through the bomb hole, out through the long right hander of Coram, and then it should start to form back up in 2 by 2 formation. And of course there will be, I think, a bit of a gap from where we were set to have. Yeah, they're leaving a gap back a little bit further from where our 4th, 5th and 6th place cars were set to be. So initially, position-wise, there is going to be a bit of an advantage for arguably the top 3, but of course there is going to be a bit of a clearer run for the likes of Martin Reynolds, Tony Paxton, Mike Thurling to be able to try and get through. So on the pit straight they come, and let's give this another shot then. So the second attempt at a start for the 105 Series, race number 2 here at Snetterton. The red lights go out now, and this time it's a decent equal start for both Piers Graves and Ashley Shellswell, but in the second phase the starts to go up through the gears. Sierra seems to have the edge. They head down towards Ritchie's for the first time. Under brakes, everyone tiptoeing in now slightly tricky conditions. Top 3 as it was. Looks like also as well, Paxton's held on to 4th. Just tiptoeing, just taking it very careful around there. So at this point in time, everyone appears to take it pretty steadily as they head down towards was at this point, Chris. It's looking pretty stable at the moment.
Yeah, you can see the tyre tracks on the circuit there. It really is treacherous conditions. I'm not sure what tyres they'll be running out there, but it looks like they are really having to take it easy. We saw how much the Caterhams are squirming around earlier, and some of these cars have considerably more power underneath their right foot, and so they're absolutely figuring out where all that grip is. We've got spin at the front there, Scott.
Well, actually, Shellswell's gone around. I think he's been tapped by possibly Alex Bowman or possibly even Piers Grange. So Jack Gadd's taken the lead. So Shellswell continues on, but a misfortune for the car that was in the lead.
Yeah, that's obviously not a way. We didn't have a big bit of contact there, so hopefully he'll be able to continue. But it's obviously upsetting to see cars spinning, and it's well done everyone else for avoiding as we're coming down into the Agostini hairpin. There's all sorts of different lines being taken as the drivers try and figure out where is that grip on the circuit. I was lucky enough to be out on the banks yesterday when they were qualifying in fully dry conditions at that time, when the sights and sounds and smells of all these cars and was brilliant to behold. And whilst they go around at slower speeds at the moment, the noise that they all make as they come across the start-finish straight, it's really exciting as a sort of a car fan. They make some brilliant noises, but you can see the circuit and how treacherous, and they're really having to tiptoe, and even then the cars are sliding.
I've stopped dying now, so I hope it should be okay with the remainder of the race here. So, right, as they come through the field, right now, Rob Burley has made the start, so I think he's trying to pick his way through, and I think this car's lost it on the exit of Williams Corner. That was Malcolm Wise. I think he possibly dipped a wheel, I'm guessing, onto the exit of Williams Corner. As a result of that, has unfortunately rotated, so he's now going to get back on the road. But Rob Burley looks like he possibly did start from the pit lane, and he's not wasting any time picking his way through some of the lower class cars towards the back. There's Tony Paxman in the Mark 1 Escort, and as they come down the back straight, Shellswell's continued on. So it looks as though, I think, in those first few corners, it's caught out quite a few of the front running cars, particularly Shellswell, who is towards the back and had that damage after he had the spin at Palmer's. So all sorts going on this first lap. We haven't completed one lap yet, and they're going essentially almost all over the place. Yeah,
we've heard before the sort of more rear end. You have to consider that he did spin out the corner there. It looked like he was losing it, so that's number 59.
That's 59, Jack Gadd. He was in the mix. So incredibly, what I have to say, I think through all of that, unless I'm seeing things, through all of that, we've had a completely random leading view, and actually from the back of the grid, from 22nd on the grid, James Harris in the Class B Ford Escort Mark II leads this race. So the simple question is, regardless of everything else that's been happening, how on earth has he done that? Because he's 22nd, he's simply kept his car on the road, whilst everyone else, well, I'm explaining how he's done it, he's kept it on the road whilst everyone else has simply just been losing it and having issues. Oh dear, that's Nigel Hutton's Ford Sapphire Cosworth, so that's both the Sapphires in strife in this second race in the adverse conditions. I think might have been a legacy of what happened between him and I think possibly Malcolm Wise and the Escort Cosworth. But James Harris, what a sensation. He must have had the race of his life at this point in time.
I was about to say, actually, in these kind of conditions, maybe a front-wheel drive with slightly less power will actually be a nice and an easier experience to drive, especially if they're on sort of treaded tyres. I'll say, I don't know what tyres they're running, but that sort of puts paid to that. We see this brilliant performance out front, clearly happy in these conditions, and got the car set up ready for the squirmy and squiggly track that we've got at the moment. But yes, we're definitely seeing a difference in approach. We've got more timidity a bit further back down the field, but even then it's still tricky to get that power applied to the tarmac.
As you can see there, case in point, Piers Grange, who won yesterday's race, is just struggling for grip as he turns in through exiting Hamilton's now into Oggie's corner. But he's again, and it's one of those age-old things where kind of you don't necessarily have to have all the power in the world to be able to because if you can't use all the power, it's all about these things in terms of regardless of how much power you've got in the conditions, it's how you use what power you've got in when it's less than dry conditions like this. And so they've got guys like James Harris and Alex Bowman, who just kept it on the road and kept it purely out of trouble, are the ones that have been benefiting. Now, Rob Burley, meanwhile, is also benefiting from the fact he's got quite a bit of power and the grip because he has four-wheel drive. So he started from the back of the grid and he was in 27th place, arguably. He must have been either from the pit lane, I'm guessing. But as they now make their way down towards the complex of Brundle and Nelson, he is now currently, well, he's running in 9th, so he's now coming up around a pair of escorts. He's gone past Duncan Stone's car, gone past the Nigel Craig car, and now he's getting past one escort Mark 1. That would have been Mike Thurley. Now he powers past Tony Paxman, so he's made up another couple of spots. That will put him into about 4th or 5th position. I don't want him too premature, but given how much power he's got and the fact that it is four-wheel drive, there's every potential chance that it could be a possible decent result here for Rob Burley because he's not too far away. So James Harris then sets the fastest lap of the race, 2:41.054. Second place goes past the pit, Alex Bohm, being chased down by Piers Grange, who will have the straight line advantage, I'm sure, if he can get the power down quick enough. Martin Reynolds, who is still in 4th in the Escort Mark II. And there's they come down the pit straight. That's when we have Rob Burley up to, well, he's 4th now because he's got past Reynolds too. So Burley on a 2:43, and gap-wise, he is 19 seconds off the lead. But the fact is that now that he's got a bit of clear air, he might be able to go a bit quicker down these slightly, possibly dry conditions if it's starting to dry up a little bit. Now the rain stopped. There's a possible chance that he could close back in, but he's going to have to make sure that he can put in some much quicker lap times and find the grip where others can't. But looks like James Harris, who, again, given some of his pace yesterday in the dry and how he's managed to benefit from everyone else's misfortunes, he's absolutely loving these adverse conditions. He's either found a bit of a niche for himself, or he's simply just discovered a pace of the car that he never knew it had.
Yeah, so definitely that's a good pace out front there, sort of 4 seconds quicker than the following second place driver. We see Burley there. So on the previous lap, he overtook 3 cars. On this lap, 5 cars. So the leader's just about in sight, so if he can dial it in, there's no saying that we can't see. In 5 minutes is quite a tough call with only a few laps really left to go. Reduced sort of speed, but yeah, great performance by Burley there, and as you say, Harris out front, loving these conditions.
So four-wheel drive taking full advantage, but of course the slightly lighter weight of the Escort Mark 1 the Mark 2 will certainly mean that James Harris might have a slightly easier time of it in terms of being able to handle the car, and as we just talked about, using all the power that's available to him, because yes, Rob Burley's car is quite powerful and it's got four-wheel drive, but given the conditions, if he can't use all that to full effect, it might not be to his advantage. But we'll take a look at his lap time and see how he gets on. There's James Harris, who continues to tiptoe around in his Escort Mark II. It's a brilliant performance. It's probably one of the underdog performances of the season within BRSC race meetings, never mind of the weekend. So Alex Bowman doing a grand job in the Boomerang Racing Run ST150. This really is a very topsy-turvy field here, with some of the cars not as far up as you'd expect. Now there's Jack Gadd in his Mark 1 Escort RSI. He's picking his way through some similar examples. He's got past the likes of Guthrie and Paxman. Now he's onto the back of Martin Reynolds in his Mark II. 2 splendid-looking cars all together on track. As they come into the right hand at the bomb hole, and up the inside goes Jack. So he's now up to, that would have put him up to 5th position. So he's made up 5 spots in 1 lap, which shows how quick he's going. And also, that's the other car of David Guthrie, as James Harris sets a new fastest lap of the race again, 2:37.324. So it really is drying up out there pretty quickly. But the other car of David Guthrie, he had some problems earlier yesterday. And then Rob Burley says, stand aside, I'll take the fastest lap of the race. 2:33.734. He's at least 4 seconds quicker than anyone else. But the trouble is, Chris, time's running out. Less than 3.5 minutes to go. He either needs a massive problem for the 3 cars in front, or just a massive injection in even more pace, if it's to dry it even more to take full advantage, because I think Rob might have to settle for 4th for this occasion, unless he can actually catch the likes of Bowman and Grange before we get to the checkered flag.
I think Bowman Grange may be in target. You know, like you say, he's got considerably more pace out there, as we probably are just seeing a slightly drying line appearing that's allowing, and maybe temperature in the tyres as well, all helps towards generating your lap time. But yeah, comfortably the fastest car on track at the moment, and it's exciting to see how far forward he can make. Only take probably 1 mistake from Harris, and again, that's not out of the question with 2.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, I was watching here David Guthrie having a scrap with And that is that Martin Reynolds going slowly. No, because he was just struggling in the conditions, I think. So I think you're absolutely right what you were talking about earlier on, given the fact that David Guthrie's just got past Martin Reynolds that quickly, is that having a front-wheel drive car in these conditions is a lot easier to deal with, because it's easier to find the grip and easier to control the grip levels, given that the driving steering is all done in one place, whereas the rear end can be a little bit more tail happy. Trying to control it's not as easy.
Generally speaking, you've got the engine over the front tyres, which generates extra weight in exactly where you need that traction, whereas the rear-wheel drive cars are often have the engine up front, so you often don't have the weight at the rear, and as soon as they start letting go, you just cannot get that power down, whereas in the front-wheel drive car, where the wheels are pulling you along, you can get on that power, and the extra weight helps.
James Harris is absolutely having the time of his life here, as now we've seen a change, not just for second but for third as well, because Alex Bowie has made a mistake somewhere, or both. The fact that it's getting drier means that the likes of Piers Grange and Rob Burley are finding the pace that they need, because now they've both got past the Alex Bohm Fiesta. There's Jack Gadd in 5th position, but James Harris, what a drive this has been from the man that finished yesterday in 22nd place, started 22nd originally, off the 22nd grid position on the rolling start, then has charged his way through to be able to put that kind of pace. So past the pits, one more lap to go for James Harris. He puts a 2:28 into the touch track. He's getting even quicker now that any early rain and early showers have been cleaning up the track. 2:26 for Piers Grange. Rob Burley does a 2:26.5. He's on the same pace as Piers Grange, but again, because he's lapping the same pace, he's not necessarily catching Piers all that quickly. So just got a bit of a trade-off here between Grange and Burley, because of course looks like Burley's quicker on the straights, but the increased error of the Mark 1 RSR Escort means that he's probably pushing his way through. Speaking of pushing their way through, there's Malcolm Wise as he gets past the Nick Worcester Mark 1, and now there's the 127 car on there too. That is Dominic Ryan trying to get past as well. So 3 very different cars you could have seen there: an Escort Cosworth, an Escort Mark 1 and a Ford Fiesta 150. Given its slightly tricky conditions, they're all amongst each other, all slightly different performance levels, but all having a great race amongst each other on a circuit that should favour power, but it's having quite an effect on allowing a variety of different cars to get up the front and make a bit of a difference. Although not such for Martin Reynolds, unfortunately, because the number 27 car is pulling into the pit lane with problems. So sadly, Martin Reynolds will not see the checkered flag. He will pull in before the timer hits 0. But a magnificent job from everyone who managed to survive not just the opening incident at the first start, but then also the rapidly changing conditions all the way through the second part of the race, as Rob Burley turns his way out of Williams onto the Bentley Straight for the final time, up through the gears in his fantastic Ford Escort WRC. But this car right here has been a star of the race. James Harrison, 22nd on the grid in car 22. He really has pretty much stole the march on everyone and picked his way through the pack, and crucially kept his head while everyone else lost theirs in the tricky conditions. And I would love to see his onboard footage to see him go from 22nd to the lead in a matter of laps. He's held off faster Escorts and Fiestas and Capris and everything else, and James Harris will head to the checkered flag, quite deservedly and incredibly so, as a modified Ford Series winner. What a fantastic drive from 22nd to the victory for James Harris, and sets the fast lap of the race again for good measure on the final lap. What a race. He then gets taken by Piers Grange, who does a 2 minutes 14.481 to take second place to win the invitation class. And does Rob Burley go for the fastest lap hat-trick? No, he doesn't. 2:19.895, but he does take third place, and his class would as well. Now for 4th and 5th, this happened to Jack Gadd yesterday, but it's roles reversed. He lost a position on the run to the checkered flag yesterday. He gains one here for the first race today. He pinches 4th from Alex Bohm. So it's Jack Gadd 4th, Alex Bohm 5th. A good recovery drive there from Jack after his early spin. Mike Thurley is 6th. And actually Shellswell, who was the spinner on the first lap of that second start and had damage to the rear of the car, he's charged through as well. That was a bit of a silent charge for him, up to 7th place. So a good recovery drive in that aspect. It's Tony Paxman 8th, David Guthrie 9th, and then Nigel Craig's going to come through into 10th position ahead of Jason Stone. So 10th and 11th for the Escort Mark II and the Fiesta ST 150. And I think we can both agree, Chris, that was quite a wild race in itself, and it produced not only a very unlikely but very deserving race winner, a very topsy-turvy result, but all in all, what a cracking spectacle that was.
but just not quite enough time to recover all that time that they had lost. But yeah, say the sights and the sounds are excellent as these cars go past our commentary position. All of them just sounding brilliant as they go through there. Like such a variety of cars. What more do you want?
Of course, quite a few of the ST150s coming through to finish off their race. Still got just the Martin Reynolds car, which becomes the pit lane already. So all the cars that were still running at the flag have taken it. So that means we can now go through the provisional result of what's been quite a crazy modified Ford Series race. And I hope that the third race, minus any contact and collisions, is just as entertaining, as exciting as that. So, again, we reiterate, from 22nd on the grid to the victory for James Harris. What a drive in the Escort Mark II. Piers Grange, who comes through to hit second place, and Rob Burley from the back picks up third. Jack Gabb recovers from a spin to take fourth, ahead of Alex Bowman in fifth. Then Mike Thurley, Ashley Shelswell after his early contact, he's in seventh. Then it's Tony Paxman, Guthrie and Craig round out the top 10. Jason Stone 11th. Malcolm Wise also had early dramas. He finished 12th. Then Nick Worcester, Kevin Hadfield, Dominic Ryan, Richard Sanders and Chris Burley. And then the unfortunate retirements: Martin Reynolds, John Edwards Parton, Nigel Hutton, Dave Barrett, and of course then we also lost Paul Neville, David Mattias and Rory Jost from the first corner incident on the first start. And the fastest lap of the race went to Piers Grange right at the end of the race.